One of the things that really intrigued me when I first got into the industry was the process of how the minerals that we have, the crystals that we have, get from point A to point B. And point A being the miner's location to the consumer's end. And the process of that is actually very vast, and you don't really realize how vast it is and how many different parts of that process there actually are. But in my line of understanding the industry, I started to be able to break it down into what it actually looks like. So if you have your crystals at your home and you're a consumer, you can actually understand how it all wound up happening. We're not going to talk about the dark side of the industry that has forced labor or child slave labor or unethical practices. We're going to talk about the good side of the industry, where people do things the right way and don't participate in evil agendas. First, we have the mining. A lot of people like to flex that they have mining relationships, or that they're in the mines, or that they are the miners, or that they own the mine. This is just such a common narrative across the storyboard. But the truth of the matter is that it's very, very rare that somebody outside of the US has mining contracts, or that is doing mining and things like that. It's extremely uncommon. So the narrative is used way more than possible, meaning that if you want to verify that information, if someone tells you, yeah, I have this, I have that, I do this, okay, can I see pictures of that to prove it? That's what I've always been saying. But number one, let's talk about the mining process. So the mining process essentially goes as follows. Most people don't own a mine. Anywhere you are in the world, essentially, you probably don't own that mine. Either you are leasing that land where you're mining, or you're leasing the mining rights, or you have a claim on a mine. There's so many different ways. Someone owns property and you purchase the mining rights of that property. But to own a mine is something that's really tough, because then you have to say that you own what's in the soil of the land, and that's a completely different story. But either way, owning a mine is probably not likely, but having mining contracts is something that is very possible for someone on the outside of the mining industry, which most miners are. We're talking about a generational thing here, where families are mining for 5, 6, 7, 8 generations worth, going all the way back. And so there's no like finding new mines, like especially big mines. They're already occupied and have been occupied for a very long time. But the miners, they mine the material, and then what happens is they need to find someone who distributes. They need to find someone who's either manufacturing or selling large amounts of wholesale. And so what winds up happening is that the miners then sell it to a distributor. The way that the miner meets with the distributor is something that's a little bit more complicated, because a lot of the times the distributors are going to be coming out of countries like India or China. The people in India and China are the ones that actually have the guts, let's just say, to get on the ground and go do risky things in other countries. I was very fortunate in the beginning of my career in this industry that I wound up doing the same thing. And I would get myself on a plane and I would go and I would find mines and I'd find miners. Really crazy thing to do. I don't recommend doing that. But I was crazy enough to do that in the early stages of developing my business. And I wound up getting several mining contracts, which were at the time held by people in other countries who weren't really doing things the right way. And so the miners were already kind of fed up with those people. They weren't getting paid properly. They weren't getting paid at all. They had been getting stolen from. Again, not getting into the depths of that, but that's what was going on the backside of it. And then I showed up and I was like, hey, give me the contract and I'll pay you for the material before you even send it to me. And that's how I wound up gaining my mining contracts. Again, you don't know what it's like to have a mining contract and what that means until about 3 or 4 different shipments into a mining contract. Then you really start understanding what it looks like, because you are getting everything that comes out of a mine. And that's a whole nother story. So when you're a distributor, you don't really have options. I'm taking everything that's coming out, from the worst of the worst to the best of the best. I'm supposed to be getting it. But one of the things that happens a lot of the times in the process is the miners will extract the best of the best material and put it to the side, and you'll never see it. That is something that happens. I'm not saying that it will happen for sure, but it is definitely a practice. And I'm not saying the people who run the mines, but maybe the people who work in the mines will find something really amazing and they will try to confiscate it or essentially steal it. And so if you have the mining contract, you're going to lose out on that premium quality stuff. And you have to realize that going into it and factor that into the proposition that you come up with. And so the miners sell it to the distributor. Distributor shows up and says, hey, I will take everything that's coming out of your mine. you give it to me. Some miners don't like doing that, and so some miners will actually wind up dividing the contract up. Some people want the low quality, some people want the high quality. I've done that with miners before. I say, I only want the A grades, I want the best material, and you'll pay for that. But at the same time, you wind up not having to figure out what to do with this really, really low-end material that you can't sell. And so the miner sells it to the distributor, right? And let's just say in this particular case, I'm a distributor. And let's talk about amethyst coming out of Brazil. So the Brazilian amethyst mine sells it to the distributor. The distributor then has to figure out what to do with that material. Do I work the material? Do I cut it? Do I polish? Do I have to clean the material still? Which most likely is the case. So the distributor then takes the material, they work the material, they cut it, they polish, they turn it into shapes or carvings or whatever it may be. They clean the material, and then they have to get the material ready for export. And that's a whole other process. So you need to have particular paperwork in play, and you need to understand the process of import-export, especially when things are coming from overseas on boat. Now, let's just say that for me, I have my own manufacturing warehouse in South America, and I'm able to just take the stuff once it's ready and bring it right over here, quick and easy. That's not the case for most people. Also, I have a manufacturing factory in India where I've been partners with somebody since 2015. And again, goes right there, comes right here. It's an easy process, but again, most people who are wholesalers in the industry, they are going through a ping pong effect, meaning that they are not the distributor themselves. And I'm not saying that I distribute every single item that I have in here, because I've been known to buy out companies that I'm friends with people and I know that they're good people, etc. But when it comes to me and my stuff, yes, it's going from mine to distribution, manufacturing, and then into my warehouses here in the US. But again, let's just say that you're a distributor and you have the rough material. You then have to find a manufacturer that can work that material for you. So you have mining, you have distribution, and then you have manufacturing. A lot of the times what you'll see is distributors also manufacturing. That's the way to really go. That's what we do. That's something that could take a few years to figure out how to do. You have to find someone who's capable of doing that. In the US, it's really not feasible, especially if you're in the wholesale or distribution side of it. The cost is just too vast. And so you have to wind up partnering up with somebody that can do it for a cost that's reasonable while maintaining ethically sourced fair trade situations. So you have mining, distribution, and then you have manufacturing, and then you have wholesale. Wholesale is more along the lines of I represent the distributor, I represent the manufacturer, and I'm able to buy the minimum quantity that the distributor or the manufacturer requires of me in order to actually get a price that I can sell wholesale now to retailers. And so that's really the gig. The manufacturer, distributor is most likely going to be selling it straight to the wholesalers, and then the wholesalers will sell it to the retailers, and then the retailers will sell it to the consumer. What happens a lot now, especially now in this industry, is that in the process of distribution to wholesale, you wind up with what's called second-party wholesale or third-party wholesale even, meaning that a wholesaler, right? Because I'm an actual wholesaler. I require proper business paperwork in order to not charge you sales tax, things like that. We're an actual wholesaler, where 90% of the people in this industry, they're really not wholesalers. They're just selling their stuff and not collecting sales tax on things, or some people just accept FEIN numbers as enough when actually you need a seller's permit. But we're not going to get into the paperwork right now. But my point is that to find a real distributor, manufacturer, wholesale is very difficult. And when most people, I've been doing this for 5 years and no one's ever asked me for paperwork, that's because you haven't run into a real wholesaler. If you ran into a real wholesaler, they would ask you for the proper paperwork because they have to produce the proper paperwork. You're going to most likely run into second-party wholesalers, meaning that let's just say that I'm a US wholesaler. I sell to other people who then wholesale as well to a retailer. So again, the idea should be mining, distribution, manufacturing, wholesale, retail, consumer. That should be the process. In between wholesale and retail, you sometimes wind up with a second or third party person. I know because I have many clients that do second party and third party wholesale here. So clients come in, they make big, large purchases from me, and then they re-wholesale it. And that's something also that's totally fine, but most likely that person is doing retail and second-party wholesale. These are a lot of the times people you'll see at the trade shows who are doing like gem shows or mineral shows who are wholesalers, but they're also selling retail at the same time. This is most likely a second-party wholesaler or somebody who is just in bed with a mining manufacturing distributor, probably most likely in China or India, and it's just buying stuff from them and not really doing that stuff themselves. So anyway, just to kind of explain it one more time and summarize the whole thing, The miners mine the material. They then send it to the distributor or the manufacturer. The manufacturer would come first. So if you're a distributor and you don't have your own manufacturing, you'd have to find manufacturing outside of your own distribution. And then distribution is going to send it to wholesale. Wholesale is then going to either sell it to a second-party wholesaler, a third-party wholesaler, or the retailer directly. And then the retailer will sell it to the consumer. So that's the price. If you are a consumer, if you're going into your local retail shops and buying your crystals, that's the process that it took to get to you. It went from mining, manufacturing, distribution, wholesale, potentially second-party wholesale, then to the retailer, and then to you. That's a lot of hands that the material passes through. And that's one of the things why I always wanted to go direct and eliminate as many people from the process as possible so that the material shows up in good condition with good energy still attached to it, clean. You can feel that from the material. Again, I'm not getting into energy properties with stones, but I am a person that is sensitive to this thing. And I do believe that when something goes through a process that's not okay, it winds up coming out not okay. That's why for me, I went all the way straight to the source and figured out how to do this in a way where there were the least amount of hands involved. Anyway, I hope you learned something from the video. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time.